Hello and welcome to the Bogeyman Golf Podcast. Today I want to talk about golf clubs. Golf clubs around Ireland have closed. Some of them have closed for good. We've already heard that Killorgan is no more and Castle Island has been deemed unviable. I'm sure more golf clubs are sure to follow. The impact that the loss of these golf clubs will have on particularly rural society around the country should not be underestimated. These small towns will not now have just lost revenue from green fees or from the t-shirt that you may have bought in pro shops, but small family-run enterprises like B&Bs and restaurants will now also lose revenue from the busloads of tourists that won't be coming through this summer. So here to talk me through how some of the golf clubs around the country have reacted and how some of them have tried to turn this positively is author, journalist and photographer Kevin Markham. Kevin, how are you doing?
Hey, great to talk to Jonny.
So you said to me off camera there that once I asked you on, you spoke to a few different golf clubs. Who have you spoken to first, and how has the reaction been overall to the recommendation by the GUI and ILGU a few weeks ago?
I think everyone's just had to take it in their stride. At one stage it looked like they might have been allowed to keep things going. I think that was around for about a week, and then Leo came on TV and said, no, everything's closing down. And to be honest, it's obviously for the best. How that works in the long term, obviously it's already affecting golf clubs. You mentioned a couple there, Killorgan and Castle Island. I actually have a slight update on that, which is positive.
That's great.
I think everybody has to be sensible about it and stay off golf courses for the time being. I actually did a little poll on Twitter this morning about whether people actually believe golf courses will reopen on the 5th of May as is being touted. And I got about 700 votes, of which 77% said they didn't believe golf clubs would reopen.
Wow.
And I think that is realistic. I honestly don't believe they're going to reopen on the 5th. It's just too tricky, and the optics of it happening just make it difficult, and it's not going to reflect well on golf if they do open, even if it's perfectly safe. The thing that really bugs me is people keep putting up photographs of like queues outside supermarkets and then showing a picture of an empty golf course going, well, where am I going to catch COVID-19? And, shopping is essential. Going out and buying your groceries, that's essential. Golf isn't. And as much as I would love to be on a golf course right now, I can't be. So we just have to take it a step at a time. In terms of the golf courses I spoke to my home club, which is Greystones. I spoke to Fermoy, Esker Hills, Galgorm Castle, Beaufort as well. Beaufort for another reason. They've actually got in touch with me to say that there's a rumour doing the rounds that they are closing, which they are not. So, this is actually another part of it. There are going to be golf courses that close. Castle Island and Killorgan are the two that have closed. The update on that is that they're actually joining forces and they're going to play as one club out of Killorgan. So that's a positive. I do know of another course that is closed, but it hasn't been confirmed really, so I don't want to speculate any further than that. And there will be other courses. So, Beaufort is going to be hammered by the rumors saying that it's going to close, and there are other courses that are going to follow suit. There are plenty of courses hanging on by their fingernails as it is. So it'll be great, when the courses reopen, and hopefully some of these courses will survive.
Sure. And of the courses you spoke to initially, what were their initial fears? I imagine there was the obvious green fees and revenue hits, but was there anything that the average golfer wouldn't have thought of that the golf club would have been fearful of?
I think one of the great things about it is people you don't realize when you run a golf club that you have to call in the pest control people to keep the pest problems down. You've got linen and towels and things that have to be washed. So these companies that work with golf clubs, they're out of a lot of business as well. And I think that's sort of the minutiae that people don't think about necessarily. And when golf clubs reopen, you've got to reestablish those partnerships. And, that's obviously important for both parties, but it's put a lot of pressure on them at the same time. So, certainly when I was chatting to Liam at Greystones, these were the sort of things that he was talking about, saying it's the small little details that make all the difference. Obviously, green fees, societies. Greystones is a very strong members club. And as a result of this, very few members have left. And obviously, any golf club has the people who don't want to pay until the very last minute because they don't play an awful lot, if at all, during the year. So this has put a real sort of stake in that and basically ended it. So those people aren't. But at the same time, I think that on the upside, and I think this is the thing, it's very easy to be really negative about this, but at the same time, look at the positives. And the positive is when golf does restart, most other sports are not going to be restarting. So you've got potentially an audience of juniors. And this is what Gary was saying at Galgorm Castle up in Northern Ireland. He said when it starts, there are a lot of juniors who are going to be looking at golf as a sport because it's the only sport. So they may take up something new and join. And a lot of people who have gave up golf a few years ago, same thing. So that there is positive. Sorry, I don't want to say there's positive news. There is a positive upside to what's going on.
There's certainly a positive spin that can be made on this. It may be slightly smaller in the grand scheme of things, but Grange Golf Club in Rathfarnham, they posted a few video blogs from their head greenskeeper, basically updating the membership on the course maintenance. And if nothing else, Grange is going to have a lovely practice area when they get back to their golf course.
I think that's actually one of the great things about the downtime. As much as every club seems to have sort of halved its greenkeeping staff, the guys who have stayed on have the freedom all day to do all the work. And you only have, as you say, to see the videos or the photographs on social media to realize how good the courses are looking, which is kind of unfair on the golfers because it just makes them even more desperate to come back. But it is. It's again, sort of, at least there's a positive vibe to it. I mean, overall, obviously, the negatives are huge. Golf clubs have been hammered. I mean, you talked in your introduction about, the small clubs outside small towns and villages that are really at the heart of a community. They're being hammered. Esker Hills, for example, they have, a small membership and they rely on green fees. They have, when I was talking to Ray, he said they have 22 societies stroke groups that come from England and Sweden who aren't coming this year. So that's a major hit for them. And it only takes a few weeks for it to really impact badly. And if we don't reopen on the May the 5th, which, as we already said, we don't think it's going to happen, it's more likely to be the end of the month, possibly into June. There will be more courses that close, and it does make it doubly difficult for the courses that are still closed.
Yeah, it is worth saying that for anyone listening, today is the 28th of April. So there's about a few days, about a week or so left on this stage of lockdown before the 5th of May, when government is meant to announce the next measures or lifting of restrictions or not, as the case may be. But Kevin, you wrote an article for the Irish Golfer magazine about some of the possible silver linings or solutions that clubs could undertake, or ways to look at how to bounce back off the back of this. And I thought that was a great early positive spin to place on this, to try and get golf clubs to look at it proactively.
Yeah, I think thanks for that. I mean, it's something. My background is in marketing, so certainly I try to look at the opportunities that are there. It's not easy. I guess part of it is, I mean, I don't know if anyone's been reading the blog or the Golfers Journal piece that they did about Cairn. Jerry Maguire up there, who's kind of running the show, he was saying how distressing it is. And you spend your entire day on the phone and on email replying to all these people who are cancelling, their visits and things. So that's very tough. So there's not an awful lot of time. I think a lot of people are having to deal with the fallout still. So that makes it difficult. But yes, there are opportunities on how you go about it. And we talked about videos and photographs on social media, keeping newsletters going to existing members. I mean, at the end of the day, the most important thing for member clubs is their members. I mean, this is the whole thing with the different profiles of golf clubs. You get very strong member clubs. You get places like Esker Hills, which have a small membership, same as Cairn, small membership. They rely very heavily on visitors. That's very tough for them right now. So while, say, for Greystones, for instance, would be very keen to be communicating with members, working with and for members, the visitor clubs are sort of looking at a different profile of audience and what they have to do. So it's a question of maintaining contact. Greystones, I mean, I was really impressed by this because they actually have done this cocooning element. I mean, obviously the whole thing with golf being an older age profile.
Sure.
A lot of guys aren't allowed out of the house. So Greystones have a team of volunteers that will go and deliver food. And the local supermarket has been brought into that SuperValue, and they will actually accept payment over the phone from these guys and women, who have had to cocoon, and people will then go and pick up the food. So, I mean, that's incredibly important for these members. And I mean, as well. I mean, it's not a deliberate ploy to build the loyalty, but it's there, and it's something that people will remember.
Sure.
So that's hugely important. And I mean, one of the other difficult things I think is this whole idea of we are not playing golf for well over a month now, possibly for another month, possibly for another 2. Let's say 3 months of not playing golf. There are guys who are going to start going, well, we're not playing, we want a refund. So it's how do you battle that? Some clubs will not give you a refund because that's the way they're set up. It's simply part of their membership structure that doesn't happen. I think people need to appreciate that. But how does a golf club counter that and make a member feel valued longer term? So do you take that 3 months and add it on to the end of this year? So instead of your membership dues being required at the end of January, you make it to the end of April. So these sort of things all make a difference. And in terms of visitors, I think you've just got to start looking at building structures with suppliers, with tour operators, with fellow clubs. I mean, one of the big things I think that I'm actually surprised you don't hear more about it is the reciprocal playing rights. So if you're a member at Galway Bay, you get playing rights at I actually have to look this one up because I've forgotten. Palmerstown House, Conqueror Wood, and Fota Island. So you'll pay a green fee, but it'll be a very small green fee.
Sure.
To go and play these clubs. Some of them you can play for free, but I mean that's a hugely valuable benefit that I don't think clubs push enough. No. So you can join a club, become a member, and you get access to 3 other golf courses.
That's great. Yeah.
They're not immediately down the road. They're not next door, but there you go. And then the other part of that, where we were just talking about Castle Island and Killorgan joining forces. Okay, so Castle Island, the golf course itself, will be gone, but Forest Little and Coorstown in Dublin, a couple of years ago, they actually made a partnership that if you were a member at one course, you got 5-day membership at the other course free. So I mean, those sort of things are really positive moves, I think, in golf in general. Never mind this pandemic. I thought that was a really positive move, and I hope more clubs do it.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the reciprocal agreement. I know I'm a member in Mount Juliet, and so I get reciprocal playing rights in Paris course. So again, it's your reduced green fee, but it's still great access. And I know there's a few others in that as well. One big thing that I thought as golfers we could all do is you see a lot of people taking golf trips abroad or going to Portugal, or a lot of people going to the States. But early on this year, myself and my friends, we looked at doing a golf trip, and we all decided to do it in Ireland and play the kind of Rosapenna and then in and around that area. And now for me as a golfer, I feel like a stronger obligation to ensure that we go on that golf trip because of it's great to play. We have great courses. It's great to play those great courses. B, to support those clubs and those communities. I think that's something that as a golfing community, that's something that we could always take on as a responsibility, is to support our clubs.
Yeah, actually, I think that's one of the most important things. Certainly when I did another piece before the one that you're talking about, which was very much aimed at golfers as opposed to golf clubs. And one of the things I finish is with exactly that sentiment. You've probably had a golf trip planned, whether it was, let's say it was to Portugal or Spain, that's now been cancelled. And no doubt you want to go away, enjoy the good weather, but support your home clubs, and maybe not support the obvious clubs. go and find the smaller clubs in the countries. I mean, Fermoy Golf Club is one of my favorites. And, nobody really knows about it. It's a very small country parkland course. I'd send anybody there. It's a fabulous place. Rathcore, Port Arlington, Portumna. There's a whole long list of golf courses that are really going to be badly affected by this. And I'm not saying that other courses aren't going to be badly affected. Everybody is. But some of the big member clubs will be stronger than most. And, the likes of, the links courses on the West Coast, they've been doing very well for years.
Sure.
And while this is obviously a big hit, the Americans will come back in droves next year. So, I don't want to say I'm not so worried about them, but I'm far more conscious of the impact that's going to be made on the smaller clubs. And
then from your own perspective, obviously you're an author, journalist, and a golf course photographer by trade. How have things been for you?
Well, tough. I'm a freelancer, and freelancers often get cut first. I work for a newspaper, and they cut me pretty quickly. And I was expecting it, so it wasn't a great surprise. I'm still working with the Irish Golfer, which is great because they're still churning out a huge amount of content, which is fabulous. I thought all my photography jobs would dry up. I've actually been surprised in the last 3 days. I've got 2 jobs in. People saying that once this is over, we need you to come up. So from that point of view, I'm actually surprised and obviously delighted. But yeah, things have taken a little bit of a hit. I had a couple of jobs in Portugal and Scotland, and they're scrapped. They're not going to happen.
Sure. So when this is all over, where's the first place that you're going to try to get out and play around? Is it going to be Greystones, or is there somewhere further afield that you would like to get out to?
Oh, well, I mean, I'd love to go back to my favorite course, which is Carn, but that's a bit of a drive. The thing is, I live quite a long way away from Greystones, so it's not the most accessible course to me. I keep thinking that I'll probably end up playing somewhere like Macreddin. Okay. But yeah, it'll be Greystones or Macreddin, I imagine.
Lovely. What is it about Carn? I've never had the good fortune to get out there. I spoke to Jerry briefly earlier on this week to try and see if he'd talk to us. But there seems to be a lot of love for not only the club but the people. Obviously, the Golfers Journal wouldn't do such a feature on it if Tom Coyne didn't have that good a relationship with Jerry Maguire.
Yeah. Oh no, there's definitely that. And I mean, Tom, between John Garrity and Tom Coyne, they've built that course into a sort of a bucket list course in the States. It was actually really nice I know Tom, and I've played with him a couple of times, and he loves the place. And it's actually really nice to have met someone who loves it as much as I do, because I always say it's my favorite course in Ireland. And people are going, well, is it not and then list off the obvious names of Royal County Down, Portrush, Ballybunion, which are all fabulous courses, don't get me wrong. But Carn for me, it's got a mystical element to it. I mean, it's huge. You're not going to get bigger dunes. I know when I wrote my book, I talked about it being like the playground of giants. It's just enormous. And there's nothing else that compares to it. So, but as you said, the people as well, they're fantastic people up there. And it's a different pace of life. It's a different attitude to golf. And I think that's why so many people love it so much.
That's interesting. I had a look at its website, and they must have read your article, or they've taken proactive action anyway. And I know they're doing a deal of 4-ball for €400, so it's £100 a head. And by that standard, of course, on that stretch of land, that's pretty good. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, it is, and I'm sure they give you a little bit of leeway too. Sorry, I probably shouldn't be saying this. They'll probably get out to me now. But I mean, they got 27 holes, and I'm sure if you just said, "Look, can I go and play the other 9?" They go, "Yep, work away, not a problem." So that again is part of the attitude and the way they look at golf. So I love it.
That's brilliant. Well, listen, Kevin, no doubt I'll be onto you again to pick your brain on a few more things. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on and for chatting to us.
Very happy to.
On the tee, Jack Nicklaus.
This is the minute that millions around the world have waited for.
We will allow you to enjoy all of this. They are dancing in the pubs of Dublin. Harrington with an ace.
Many doubted we'd ever see it.
And we have a shining star at sunset. Rory continues his run to greatness.
the return to glory.